5 of our tutorial on making a brick breaker game. In this video, we will be looking at how to end the game, either when we run out of lives or when we have destroyed all of the bricks on the screen. So let's start with lives first. Last video we had our lives hooked in and working, where every time the ball falls off the bottom of the screen, we take a life away from our lives. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into our script. We're in the ball script here, and when the ball collides with the bottom, right now we're updating our lives, we're sending it a -1 because we just lost a life. So let's go to our game manager then, where the update lives function is. And in our game manager here we have update lives. Right now we're adding the lives, so a negative life would just take one away. We're updating our lives text. And what we want to do here though is, like we left a note for ourselves before, is check to see if there's any lives left and end the game. So we're just going to ask a little question here. We're going to say if lives is less than or equal to 0. If that is true, then we are out of lives. So we should end our game here. We're going to make sure we just set lives back equal to 0, because if for some weird reason we had something where it skipped over 0 and went to -1, we would want to make sure our text here when we update it gets 0. So we'll set lives equal to 0 to make sure that's set, and then we're going to need to trigger the end of the game. So I think what we'll do is make a new function here. We'll just call this game over, and we'll call that. So let's make that function down here at the bottom here. So we'll make a void function game over, and what we want to do is we want to actually just kind of freeze up whatever's happening on the screen. We want to take away the ability for the player to control the paddle, and we'll pop up some sort of a panel or some buttons that allow the player to start the game again or to quit. So let's take a look at those steps here. So currently, when the game's over, when we go to negative, we can still keep playing the game. So what we probably want to do is make sure that the ball does not come back to the paddle, and we'll just kind of freeze the paddle up. So let's make a public variable up here at the top to hold the state of our game, whether it's playing or not. So we'll do a public bool, and we'll just call this game over. So when the game starts, game over will default to false. Then what we can do is we can check, so let's save that. We'll go to our ball script. The ball script has a link to our game manager right here through the game manager variable. So we will just check here before we reposition the ball and do any of this right here. So the first thing we'll do is we'll put a if statement up at the top here. We'll say if gm.game over. If that is true, then we're just going to return. Return means to stop doing whatever we're doing right here and skip the whole rest of the update function and just go back to whatever called the update function. So we'll check that first. So the game over is over. We won't do anything here. This will just disable everything else that's in the bottom here. And let's just see what that does just in that part there. To trigger that, we'll have to go back to our game manager here now. And in game over, what we'll do is we will actually take our game over boolean variable and set it equal to true. So when we run out of lives, we'll call game over. Game over right now is just going to change the value of that variable from false to true. That should cause in the next update cycle in the ball script for it to stop responding to any of the controls here. Okay? At least that'll be for the launching of the ball. So let's see what happens if we do that. I'm going to click in on our game manager here so we can see game over is currently false. Alright, so let's just try to lose all of our lives here quickly. One more life to go. Okay, now it's 0. Now you notice I can still move the paddle around, but the ball did not come back. And game over is now checked as true. If I look to see where the ball is just kind of frozen down here somewhere. Okay, so it just stopped right here off the bottom of the screen because we're still killing its velocity. We just aren't moving it back to the paddle. So that works fine for keeping the ball from coming back. And if we push spacebar, nothing happens, and they can just kind of move around here, but the game is over. Now we could also take the control of the paddle away as well. If we go to the paddle script here, let's find that in our project panel here. So if we go to the paddle script, we could also have the paddle have a link to the game manager. So let's do that. Public game manager. We'll call it GM here as well. And then we can check here as well. Right at the top of the update function here, we can see a GM.GameOver. So if that's true, we can do the same thing. We can just return. And what that'll do is it'll stop the paddle from updating its position, and it'll keep the ball from moving around. So we can do that. We just have to go out into Unity now and tie the game manager variable into our game manager. So let's go out here. We'll click in on our paddle. We'll look in the script here for GM Game Manager. I'll just drag the Game Manager to it so that it will get the script off of that Game Manager object. And now it should also freeze up the paddle. So let's lose our lives here again real quick and see what happens. Okay, so now I'm pushing the arrow keys. I cannot move the paddle. Everything is frozen up. So that's exactly what we wanted to do when the game was over. Just take all the controls away and stop everything. The next step would be to pop up either a panel that goes over the top of here, or a couple of buttons, or something that would allow the player to do their buttons for game play again or for quitting. So let's make a quick panel here in our canvas. Let's zoom out here so we can see our canvas real well. And let's go to the canvas. And we've got our score text and our lives text up here. Let's go ahead and add a panel to our text here. So I can right click here on my canvas, go to UI, let's add a panel. A panel is kind of like an overlay window that you can put over the top of your screen. So we could let it cover the whole screen like this if we like, or we could actually bring it down in a little bit. So why don't we do that? Let's take it off of stretch. Right now it's set to stretch this across to always fill the entire screen. Let's go ahead and anchor it to the middle of the screen instead. And then I can go to my rectangle tool here and I can just grab the edges of this and I can kind of pull them down. So let's make a kind of a panel here about the middle of the screen. We can zero that out on the X to get it to center. We can zero it on the Y as well. We could put it right in the center of the screen, give ourselves some space, and then we can actually add UI elements to this panel as children of the panel. So let's do that. Let's go here. Let's change this to our Game Over panel. Always good to name these with names that make sense. And then I'm going to right click on Game Over panel. I'm going to go to UI and let's add a text. You notice that indented underneath. Let's call this our Game Over text. And let's go ahead and make that text box a little bigger here. Let's make it say big and across the top here, Game Over. So let's change the text here to Game Over. I'm going to center that text both vertically and horizontally, and then let's just make that nice and big. So it looks like we can get it to about 90 size here. And let's change that text color. We can change the color by clicking down here. Maybe we'll make that big and red, and we'll have it say Game Over right there. And then we want a couple of buttons because we want the player at this point to decide if they want to try again or if they just want to be done playing our game for now. So again, I'm going to click on my Game Over panel, then I'm going to right click it and I'm going to add a UI button to the scene. So we're going to drag that button over here a little bit. Let's make it a little bigger by just using the rectangle tool, something about like that. Buttons have underneath them as a child a text. This would be the text that's on the button. Right now it just says button there. I can change it right here in the text element of that text option there. So let's just make this our play again button. And we can make that font a little bit bigger, maybe around a 30 it looks like. And if we go back to the button here, we can change the button's color right here. So let's see, what kind of color do we want our button to be? Maybe some sort of a nice blue color here, a little brighter maybe. So we'll make a play again button here. Let's go back to the text, and we can change the text here as well. Let's take it to a darker color. Let's take it to black so it stands out, contrasts a little bit more. So here's our play again button. Let's name this button over here so that we know which one this is. This is play again button. We have our play again button in place here, and now I want another button for quit. So since I've got this one formatted and looking how I want it, let's just duplicate this one and make that into our quit button. So just like we did before, if we right click on the button, we can just select duplicate. It'll give me a copy that it'll sit right on top. I can then drag that over to the side here. I can go in here and change its name to quit button. Let's take that one off the end, and then I can go into the text underneath here, and instead of saying play again, we'll just have it say quit, like so. And now I have my two buttons. And then we probably want to make sure that they stay centered, kind of apart from themselves. So I can look at like the coordinates here. Like I've got a -174 here, and I've got a +174. These are set to go around the middle of the panel right now. So these are actually the same distance from the center on both sides, so it looks good right there. Now on our panel, if we want, we can change this background color behind us. So you got this gray here right now. If you go to the panel's color, this allows us to change it. So we can tint it whatever color we want. Right now it's kind of a whitish tint. We can darken it a bit more if we want to. The alpha will make it either fully solid or fully see-through. So it's kind of a nice effect to be able to just kind of set something off the screen, but still be able to see through to what's going on back behind there. So we can play with some of that as well, like how bright or how dark. I think I'm going to darken it down a little bit, like so. So now I have a panel that we can display that will have our two buttons on it. Now of course we don't want this panel to be visible while we're playing the game. So one of the reasons why you would use a panel is so that you can put these other elements underneath it, because if I disable the panel, I can go up here and click its little check mark in its game object. It'll disable that panel and all the children objects. So the panel is now invisible and it's disabled, and then I can reactivate it by clicking this box up here. So at the end of the game we can turn it on. When we're playing the game we can turn it off. So we will start with it turned off at the beginning of the game. So the next job we have to do then is when the game is over, we want to reach out to this game over panel and make it visible again. We want to set it back to active. So let's go back into our script here and look at how to do that. In the Game Manager script, when the game over is true, we also want to turn on that panel. Before we can turn the panel on, we have to have a reference to it. Okay, we're going to go to the top here. We're going to make a variable to hold a link to our panel. So let's make a public, let's just make this a game object, because we just want to turn the game object on and off on the panel, and we'll call this game over panel. Alright, and then we can save this. We'll go out into Unity and establish the connection. So if we go to my Game Manager, you'll see it now has a game object variable slot here for my game over panel. I'll go ahead and grab the game over panel and drag it in. So now we have a link to that game over panel's game object. Then back in the script, we can go down here to game over and we can say game over panel dot set active, and in the parentheses here we'll put true. The set active command will activate a game object or deactivate a game object. And we go true there, it activates it, false, it deactivates it. So if I save that now and go out into Unity, and let's take the number of lives we have down to 1 so we can test this a little quicker. Let's test this out. When we run out of lives, that panel should pop up. And there it is. So everything is froze up. The panel popped up. Basically, set active does the same thing as unchecking or checking this box right here. So it was unchecked. When we ran out of lives, I told it to set that to true, so it just checks that box for us, and the panel pops back up. So now we have the panel popping up. What we want to do next is make our play again and our quit buttons work. So if when we click the play again button here, we want this panel to go away, and we want the game to reset itself back to the beginning. So what we're going to end up doing is having this button, when it's clicked, call a function in our game manager script that will basically reload our entire game. So let's do that as our next step. Back in our script then, we're going to need another function, and this is a function that the button has to call. That means it has to be called from outside the script, so it needs to be a public function. So we'll call this public play again, and we need to give it a return type, so void. So public void play again, put the body in for the function there, and what we want this to do is reload our game. To reload our game, we need access to something called the SceneManager. I don't have access to that unless I tell Unity to include that at the beginning of my script here. So I'm going to have to add another using tag, just like I did for adding the UI things in earlier. I want to say here using Unity Engine dot scene management. This gets me access to all the scene management things such as loading and unloading scenes, so forth and so on. So I'm going to include that so I have access to those built-in Unity methods. Down here in play again, now I can go to SceneManager, which is part of that scene management, and then I can get from that, or I can use a method from that called load scene. Now I have to tell it the scene name as a string that I want it to load. The scene name is whatever I called my scene when I saved it. So let's put the quotes in here for the string and set that up. And let's go take a look and see what we called the scene. If I go back to Unity, I can see that up at the top here it says main.unity. So main, this is the current scene that I'm looking at. Alright, if I go look in my assets panel here, I can see here's my scene file here, and it's capital M main. So that's the name of the scene I want to load. That's the name exactly how I have to type it as a string in that command. So down here I gotta type in main just like that. This will cause Unity to go out and reload the main scene, which will unload whatever is currently playing and then load the scene back in again. So we're going to save that and go back into Unity. There's one more step here we have to do to make it load the scene in, and that is we have to tell Unity which scenes are actually in the playable build of our game. So we're going to go up here to File and Build Settings. That'll give me this little pop-up menu. This is where we can tell it what platform we're building forward. It's building for PC here, and we need to tell it what scenes are in our build. Well, right now I only have one scene. It's my main scene. That's the one that's currently open, so I can just tell it to add open scenes and it will add it for me. The other thing I could do is I could drag and drop it in from the project panel as well. Alright, so now it knows that main is an actual real scene that I do want it to be able to load, and I can just X this out. It doesn't need any other clicks here. So just include that in your scenes and build, and now when I call this function, it will find the scene in its scenes and build by this name, and it will load it. Alright, so now out in Unity we have to make the button. So let's go ahead and turn this panel on so we can see our button. We have to make it so when we click this play again button, it will call that function in our game manager script. So I'm going to click in on my play again button here in the hierarchy, And all buttons have an OnClick event down here. So this is where I can give it instructions to do things when I click it. So I'm going to add an OnClick event to my Play Again button by clicking the plus sign here to add an event. And the first thing it needs is an object. What object do I want to affect, or do I want to go to? Well, I want to get to a function in my Game Manager script. So that means I need my Game Manager, because the Game Manager has the Game Manager script. So over here in my scene, I'm going to drag my Game Manager into this object box here. That gets me the Game Manager game object. Then from this drop-down box that says no function in it, I'm going to find the piece of the Game Manager game object that I want. What I want is the Game Manager script, which is right here. Now this will open up and show me all the different things I can do with the script and all the public functions that are in the script. There's one here we just made called Play Again. So I'm going to select that one. So now when I click the Play Again button, it's going to look at this OnClick event. It's going to go to my Game Manager script, and it's going to call the Play Again function, which will then cause the scene to be reloaded. So let's test that out. Let's go ahead and turn the Game Manager, or the Game Over panel, back off. Okay, so when I run out of lives, it pops the screen back up, and if I hit play again, it reloads my scene. Notice I went back to score 0 and lives 1, because that's what I set it to. So if I lose again, same thing, I can just hit play again. It resets everything, basically just reloaded the whole entire level like I just started the game. So that is how we can do Play Again. Let's handle Quit next. So same kind of idea. When we click the Quit button, we want to call a function here in our Game Manager script. So let's make another public function, and let's call this Quit. And when we call Quit, what we want it to do is we want it to just close the window down that we're playing our game in. So I'm going to go to Application.Quit. And what Application.Quit will do is it will just close down the application or the window that this game is playing in. Now this will not work in the editor. So when I test this in a minute, you're not going to see Unity shut down. We wouldn't really want that because we're still working on the game. We don't want to shut it all down. But when we build this out into its executable file and we hit quit, it would actually close that window. So let's just put a debug statement in here just so we can see that it's doing something for testing purposes here, and we'll say game quit. So that way we can actually make sure it's going to this function and running these commands. So I'm going to save that. We're going to go back out into Unity. We're going to click in on our Play Again button here. So what we want to do is we want to add an OnClick event to the Quit button, just like we did the Play Again button. So I'm going to go here to the OnClick area, click the plus sign. Again, the function I want to run is in the Game Manager. So I'm going to grab the Game Manager, drop it into the object box. I'm going to drop the no function box down here and go to my Game Manager script. I'm going to look for that public quit function, which is right here, and select it. Let's test it out here now. So if I run out of lives, it pops up my quit. If I click quit, I get the message down here, my console game quit. So that tells me that it went to that function, it ran it. Again, the Application.Quit command will not do anything in the editor here. We'd actually have to build the game, and then you would see that it would quit when we run out of lives. So that does work in the built out version, not in the editor. But that's how we would set it up. So now we have a way of ending the game when we run out of lives. Let's talk next about how we can end the game when we've won it. We've broken all the bricks and there's no bricks left. So the first thing we need to know is how many bricks are in the level. Now we could sit here and we could, open up our hierarchy here. We could count all the bricks on the screen if we want to. But then this would only work for the level that we're currently in. And eventually we want to make this so we can have multiple levels. When we clear one level, we can go to the next level. So what we need to do is have Unity count the bricks for us. And then every time we break one, we just want to count that brick. And when we know that we've broken all the bricks, then we can trigger the end of the level or the game. So let's go into our script here, into our Game Manager again. Game Manager is now going to need to know how many bricks are in this current level. So we're going to add a variable to hold that. This doesn't need to be public, but I'm going to make it public so we can see it in the inspector. So we'll make a public int. So this will be a whole number of bricks, and we'll call this number of bricks. Alright, now in the start function here, when we start the game for now, and we'll have to update this when we go to actually loading additional levels, but for now, when the game starts, let's have the Game Manager go out and find out how many bricks are in this level. So we're going to say number of bricks equals, we're going to use something called GameObject.Find. Okay, so we can actually go out and find game objects with this command, and what we want to do is actually find all of the game objects that have the brick tag on it. So that way it doesn't matter if we have several different types of bricks, we're all going to tag them with the brick tag. So you see in the list here there's find game objects with tag. The objects plural will return to me an array, a game object array. Okay, find game object with tag will just return me one object. I want all of them. Okay, so I'm going to use find game objects with tag, and then I have to tell it what the tag is as a string here. So the tag, I believe, was brick. We'll verify that in a minute. Now, I can't store an array. This will return me an array of game objects. I can't store that in an integer variable. What I really want is not the array of game objects. What I really want to know is how many of them I have. So I can get the number of objects in an array by just asking for its length. So basically, at the beginning of the game, I'm telling Unity, go out and find all the game objects in this scene that are tagged as a brick. Put them in an array, but don't give me the array, give me its length. So how many did you find? And this will be an integer number that we can store in our integer variable here. So I'm going to save that, and I'm going to go out into Unity and verify that we did actually use brick as the tag, so that this will actually work for us. So let's go to our bricks and pick one, and yes, see the tag right here is brick. So let's click in on our Game Manager, and let's hit play and see if it gets all of our bricks. And there you go, it says we have 22 bricks. So if we were to count these, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 times 2 is 22. So now at the beginning of the level we know how many bricks we have, and whichever level we load, we can use the same method here to count the bricks when the level first loads up. Then as we break bricks, we need to make sure that we tell the Game Manager to take a brick away from the number of bricks that are left. So if we go back into our script now, and we go to the ball script, because the ball script knows when it's hit a brick. Right here, see, if we hit a brick, we're making the explosion, we're destroying that explosion, we're updating the score, and we're also destroying the brick. So not only do we want to update the score now, but we also want our Game Manager to know that we have broken a brick and that it's gone. So we're going to kind of keep this separate from update score, because it's possible in the future that we'll make a brick that takes more than one hit to destroy. So we would have to change a couple of things here if that was the case. But let's go into the Game Manager and make a function that we can call that will update how many bricks we have left in the scene. So I'm going to go to my Game Manager. Let's just sneak another function in here somewhere. Maybe let's put it right here. We'll keep all the game over, quit, play again stuff at the bottom. Let's make another public void function. Let's call this update number of bricks. And we're going to assume when we call this that we've broken just one brick. So we will call this every time a brick is broken, and we will take one away from the number of bricks. So we have this number of bricks integer variable. Let's just say number of bricks minus minus. Minus minus just means take one away from the number of bricks and store whatever is left back in that variable. It's the same as saying number of bricks minus or equals number of bricks minus 1, or number of bricks minus equals 1. It's the same thing. It's just a shortcut. So we'll take one away from our number of bricks. We could then check to see if we have any bricks left. So if number of bricks is less than or equal to 0, then we know our bricks are all gone. And so what we're going to want to do then is trigger the end of the game. So for now, let's just call game over, because the game is over. And of course, when we add in the ability to load in a new level, then we'll probably call load next level or something like that. We'll come up with a function for that. For now, let's just make the game end when we run out of bricks. Okay, now that we've got the function for update number of bricks here, and we're doing all that and we're calling game over, we just have to make sure we call this function whenever we break a brick. So we got to go back to our ball script, and right here, when we hit a brick, we can update the score, and we can also say, okay, then also go to GM and call update number of bricks, like that. So now not only will it update my score, but it will then go ahead and take a brick away and check to see if our level is over. So let's save that. Let's go back out into Unity here now. Okay, so we're going to make this easy on ourselves. We're going to play. It got that we had 22 bricks. I'm just going to change that to 1. I'm going to make the game manager think there's only 1 brick here, because I don't want to take the time to break all these bricks to see if this works. So if I break 1 brick, it should take 1 away. It did. See, now it says brick 0. It immediately called game over, which popped everything up. I can't control anything. My buttons are back here. If I hit quit, it quits. If I hit play again, it plays again. Alright, well that'll about do it for this video. We've gotten our game now where it will end if we run out of bricks, or if we run out of lives, we can quit, we can start again. In the next video, we'll start taking a look at how to add some simple power-ups into our game that can affect our gameplay. So we'll look forward to that. Again, as always, thank you for watching. Feel free to leave comments below if you have any questions, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Thanks, and have a great day.